This conference will now be recorded.
Bonjour, everyone. That means hello. Welcome, Miigwech. Thank you for joining us tonight to honor Mayingan, the wolf, and honor all the Anishinaabe Moan knowledge that exists on this land about Mayingan and how to live with Mayingan. My name is Abby Fergus, and I am the wildlife specialist for the Bad River Tribe, which is an Anishinaabe tribe on Gitchigumi or Lake Superior. And it's an honor to host this event tonight. I've been working with the tribe in different capacities for 3 years now, and I really wanted to have this event this week because I've learned more from Anishinaabe teachings and language and Anishinaabe people about Mayingan than my scientific education in carnivores, even though that's also been really valuable to me. And I just want to spread the appreciation of this knowledge. So I'm really grateful that we have so many wonderful guests joining us tonight, and I'm grateful that Thomas Peacock, who's such a great author and knowledge holder, has given us his time tonight to share some of the messages from his book, The Wolf's Trail, and share about some Anishinaabe teachings. In the chat box at the very top, you can see there's an agenda, and I'll just walk us through what we're doing tonight. Oh, you don't see? Okay, I'm gonna repost the agenda link right now because I realized you might not be able to see it. So just in case you're a person, give me 1 second. That posted. All right, now there's a link to the agenda. So before we get started, I wanted to thank some people. Royce Galindo, a piping plover monitor for Mashkiiziibii Natural Resources, helped me make this event happen. Also, Birch Bark Books in Minneapolis is a great bookstore, and they're the reason that I read The Wolf's Trail in the first place, and they're open for online orders right now, so I really encourage you to go support them, and I'll put the link back in the chat in a little bit when I'm not distracted trying to talk to you. And then I'm also going to give you the link to Thomas and his partner's publishing company that's local here on the Chequamegon Bay. So please remember to support local businesses and Anishinaabe businesses. I learned much from this book, and like was mentioned in the advertising, we do have some copies of the book to give away to some Bad River members at the end of the event. We're going to play an Anishinaabe Moan, which is the Ojibwe language game. So if you are at least in the area, because I can't ship these books out, you can post your name in the chat and say that you'd like to participate in the game. And if we have more than 10 people, I'll just randomly draw your names. So remember to post in the chat if you want to have a chance to play the Anishinaabe Moan game and receive a copy of The Wolf's Trail. And this is open for Bad River members to play, but it would be fun if you want to stay on and watch that at the end of the event. That game is going to take place with Wabagwan, who's a wonderful Anishinaabe Moan teacher with the Bad River tribe. So an overview of the evening, so I'm going to welcome Thomas and really give him the time to talk about not only his book, but this bigger message we have tonight about the importance of Anishinaabe voices and teachings in protecting Mayingan, especially in this time when the gray wolf is about to be federally delisted by the federal government. And I'm always happy to talk to people more about this, and I'll put my contact in the chat. But to give you a really big picture of the situation, the Great Lakes states all have very outdated wolf management plans, and they're not up to date with the latest science, and they're not up to date with reviewing our ethics of how we treat Mayingan. So this is worrying, and there's lots of ways that people can get involved and work to try to still protect Mayingan even when this tasting goes through. After Thomas's talk, I'm going to take some questions. So if you have questions that pop up during the talk, feel free to just put those in the chat anytime. And I'll just be asking them on people's behalf because it's a little bit complicated to go through muting and unmuting people. And then around 7:55, we'll wrap up questions and we'll transition to playing the Anishinaabe Moan game, or you can stay on and watch even if you're not participating. I've learned so much about ecology and Mayingan, the wolf in particular, from just like the novice amount of Anishinaabe Moan I've learned, so it's really a treat to be able to take in the language. So, oh, in addition, I just wanted to give a little bit of an explanation of the Mashkiiziibii Wildlife Program because a lot of people might not be familiar with tribal natural resources departments. I know I wasn't. I grew up on Potawatomi land in what is now called Southwest Michigan, and all the Potawatomi people were displaced from there. So I grew up not understanding that Indigenous people are still here, and that's really unfortunate. So I wanted to explain that tribes are very active, just as they always have been, in stewarding all the land that we all depend on for our lives if we're here on Turtle Island, or what's called North America now. So some of the things that our wildlife program does in particular, we have a Mayingan relationship plan, which outlines how we're going to take care of Mayingan and our relationship with Mayingan, and I'll link to that in the chat. Or Royce already did. Miigwech Royce. So you can check out our Mayingan relationship plan there, but we're also just very involved in studying what the wolf is doing on the Bad River Reservation, but also some in the ceded territory. And tribes often lead in scientific research and so much more in this realm. So that's why it's important for more of us to be aware of this work. And I'll wrap up now and welcome Thomas and ask him to please introduce himself in his way and share what you have to share with us today. Miigwech, Thomas.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I came about doing this particular book and sort of what's behind it. It's entirely a work of fiction, so I want you to think about it that way. I'm from the Fond du Lac Reservation in Minnesota. My mother actually is a band member there, and I grew up there. My father's from Red Cliff in Wisconsin. He attended the Catholic, that sister school there in Ordina. His schooling was there, and for some years, my family lived in Red Cliff, and 3 of my brothers were born. There must have been a a government Indian hospital there in Hayward area at one time, because they were born down in Hayward. I was actually born up in Minnesota. About half my family is enrolled here in Red Cliff, where I am tonight, and the other half of my family is our Fond du Lac band members. I'm a Fond du Lac band member, so we're kind of split on that way. So that's a little bit about my background. I've been had an interest in mostly in Ojibwe history for a long time. I think about geez, it's getting to be almost 50 years now. Very informally, as a young kid, listening to my grandparents talk about life in their community a long time ago, and just being an avid listener. I think as I got more schooling, I started listening more intently, and then back in the old cassette tape days, I started taping people as they would let me, and collecting different kinds of interviews like that. So became a history teacher, and so my background is actually in American history, if you can imagine taking American history from someone like me. It was a very different version of history. You can believe that. Or, but anyway, so I started doing Ojibwe history, and so a lot of my writing has been in that area. I don't really have a background in Ojibwe history at all. I mean, like I said, I have no formal training in it. Like I say, I interviewed a lot of people, and I listened a lot, and of course I read a lot. So it's kind of started from there. But a number of years ago, I made a transition into writing fiction, and so the Wolf's Trail is kind of a result of that, and other books that I've done. So I'll stop there and let you tell me where to go from here.
Could you transition to speaking some about the Wolf's Trail and the process of writing it and some of the messages?
Sure. I had done a collection of short stories, I think about 4 years ago, called The Tao of Nokomis, and it was published by North Star Press, and then subsequently North Star Press went out of business. I think the owner died, and so then we published it through Kindle Direct Publishing. So it's an Amazon book, and it's available on Amazon now. But 3 of the stories of the I think 12 stories that I did in it were where animals had, or the principal characters in there, and 2 of them were where wolves were the principal characters, and one was where a bear was a family of bears were the principal characters, and so I use that kind of conduit, sort of the way of doing stories to get the kind of messages that I'm trying to convey across. So the idea for the Wolf's Trail then came out of the Tao, because I used versions of 2 of those stories, and I was thinking that I'd like to do a book of fiction where wolves are the principal characters, and if you're Anishinaabe or Ojibwe, you're familiar with the role of Maingan and first human in the naming of the earth, and I thought, well, I could sort of take from there and try to develop a story from there, and so that's kind of what I did. And so the name of the book actually is The Wolf's Trail, and of course I'm reading the title. I don't know why I'm doing that. I wrote the book, An Ojibwe Story Told by Wolves, and really it's about the Ojibwe told through wolves. And so in order to do something like this, I had to do quite a bit of finding out about wolf social behavior and that kind of thing. So you know, I read books and I watched a lot of video on wolves, and then I sat down with the wildlife biologist from the Fond du Lac Reservation, from Mike Schraz, and I wanted to make sure, you know, when you give animals like human voice, intentions and emotions, of course, you know, the animal character is not going to be true to its character, but I wanted to infuse as much wolf social behavior into the story as I could. So I combined, you know, the human things, because you know, you have to do that when you create fiction, you know, where animals talk, right? And then the wolf behavior at the same time. So that's what it is. And the title itself, The Wolf's Trail, you know, comes from Ojibwe cosmology. So in the book, you know, when you first open the book, you'll see a picture of the Ojibwe sky, you know, with the constellations, um, and you'll see the Wolf's Trail. You can see that a ring, the inner ring, in that with our constellations. That is the Wolf's Trail, and it describes the ecliptic, the path of the sun and the moon and all the planets around the sun, the planets around the Earth. Or excuse me, the planets going around the sun. You know, the Earth and the moon. All the other planets, the path of the sun, you know, around the universe, and so it gives reason for the seasons, um, for why we can see different constellations in different, you know, different times of the year. It tells us why we have eclipses of the moon and the sun. And of course, our ancestors knew all this. So anyway, so that's where the title itself come from. And then in a broader sense, it describes that life path of wolves and humans at the same time. So the title has that kind of symbolic kind of meaning. A lot of people, I think, ask about, you know, well, why would I do a book of fiction like this? Well, part of it is just the challenge of giving voice to animal characters, but part of it is, for me, is also to think in terms of reclamation, because, you know, like a lot of Native people, I worry about what we have become. You know, and I worry that you know, through the process of colonization, you know, we've adopted so many attributes of Western American society. You know, many Native people have become individualistic and materialistic. Um, we've adopted governmental systems that are patterned after, you know, the American political system. It looks nothing like our traditional systems of governments, nothing like our traditional clan systems. You know, so through all of that process, we've changed, and wolves, of course, have remained the same. You know, wolf cultures as strong as it was, you know, for many thousands of years. So that's the whole thinking initially behind the thing, was that so wolves look at us humans and they say, you know, these people are really changing, and we have this parallel story. You know, whatever happens to humans and wolves will happen to the other, and that story, of course, goes all the way back to the beginning, goes all the way back to our creation story, and so wolves are concerned in this story of what's happening with us, and so they're this particular pack of wolves, the principal characters, Jishe is the principal character. He's an elder wolf, an uncle wolf, and then there are the young pups, and there are three characters that sort of those young pups. There's youngest nephew, and he plays a principal role in the story, and then there's little niece, and little niece, of course, has a significant role as the story goes along. And then there's this one who is always the one who always says stupid. He thinks everything's stupid, and he thinks that everything that the humans are doing is stupid. And so he's always saying, well, they're just so stupid, you know. So I also infuse, you know, that kind of humor in it too. So it's a very serious story, and I think, Abby, when you read it, you mentioned how emotional it was, you know, and I do that very purposefully. I think with a lot of my writing, it does bring out a lot of emotion, because I feel that emotion, you know, when I'm doing that kind of writing. But I also use a lot of res humor, so it's filled with res humor, and the wolves, of course, have that crazy res survival humor that, you know, that I have, and you know, from growing up on the res, and you know, that those of us who live on reservations have, because, you know, if we didn't, we'd go crazy, because, you know, the world can be pretty crazy with us. We have to deal with a lot of crap. So anyway, so that's where the story kind of spins off on it. There are, like a lot of fiction, it's layered. There are deeper messages in the story, and I put those in very consciously. You'll see the beginning of each of the chapters that I highlight certain of our teachings, certain of our values, of those important values. So you'll see at the beginning of each chapter there'll be it might list a value or two or three, but and those values will be highlighted throughout the story, sort of embedded in the story. I might not even mention the value, but the value will be embedded in the story that Jishe is telling. So in each chapter, then Jishe is telling, is talking story to these young pups and teaching them about humans, teaching them about the Ojibwe. So so that's one of the messages in it, and there are, of course, other messages that, well, I have a chapter, for example, and it's about Jagog. It's about Jishe's brother, and he has a name Skunk, right? So and he's a submissive. He's Omega, and that particular chapter I put in there purposefully, because in every family there is an Omega, and if you're a family member, you may be able to identify who that submissive is in a family and in the extended family, and people like that are singled out and picked on. They're teased, they're bullied, and so I included that chapter in there for that reason. So, so it begins with that beginning with you know, a sort of a fictionalized version of Vaingan and First Human out naming the earth, and it goes all the way up until today, and each of the chapters sort of builds upon that kind of theme, and kind of wondering what's going to happen to us, and where are we going, and there's a chapter in there about the hunting of wolves, and of course there's a whole history of the decimation of wolves that went on. And so what I did when the story was done, when I had a version of the manuscript done, is I brought it to the wolf person at Fond du Lac, and I said, hey, would you be interested in in reading this for me and telling me how far off base I am about wolves? And he gave me some wonderful advice. Actually, there were just a couple of minor kinds of things, and I'll just give you one example of that. One example was in part of the story, I have a youngest nephew and little niece and Jishe crossing the St. Louis River to get from to get from what's now Minnesota into northern Wisconsin on a journey. And initially I had them crossing the Oliver Bridge just south of Superior. It's an old railroad bridge, it's an old bridge anyway. And I had them crossing that in the middle of the night. And Mike said, he said wolves would never ever cross a bridge. He said they'd swim. They swim that river. They would never ever cross a bridge. And so it's things like that where he gave me that kind of advice. So I'm going to stop right now, and I'm going to see if there are any questions at all about it, the story or the book, or has a really cool cover. So I think that's one of the reasons everybody's been buying it. It's been very popular for some reason. So yeah.
For some reason, it really deserves to be popular. I just want to say real quick that if you are seeking to understand this whole history of the relationship between Mayingan and Anishinaabe, and it really just contextualizes where we are today with delisting, and just how the new people have not gotten to a better place. It's just a very timely book. It came out, I feel like it was meant to come out right now. I don't know how, if you feel that way, but to me, as someone trying to help with this delisting, this book is really helping me. So miigwech for that. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit, or if you're willing to talk a little bit about the 7 fire prophecies, because we're talking about how colonization and assimilation continues to happen. But I kind of also want to talk about an alternative way forward.
I think I imagine all of the Ojibwe people who are listening in are familiar with those teachings, and so I kind of highlighted one of them in the book, really having to do with kind of where we are now, somewhere in that transition, where our communities are having such difficulties, and where and that this started with the arrival of the French a long time ago, and it sort of continued, and where we have this dichotomy, where we have this beautiful culture, and then we have this contradiction where we have all these other things going on in our communities, that have made life for many of us so difficult, where we have to deal with, say for example, me as an elder, having to be afraid of certain young men because they've never been taught respect for elders, and they victimize their own people. You know, that kind of thing, gangs, um, drugs, you know, and I don't separate, you know, who I am from all of that because, you know, because I'm a regular old res person like everyone else, and you know, all of those issues that we deal with, you know, all of those kind of social issues, those are, you know, those are my brothers and sisters and nephews and nieces and cousins and aunties and uncles and neighbors and friends and people I grew up with. You know, most of the people I grew up with are dead from all of that, and I happen to be lucky and survive it all. And so, yeah, the sixth fire is in there, and the wolves, of course, are wondering what in the world's going on with these people. Are they going to survive this? You know, are we going to come out of this okay? And so, so if you think of the whole story as a kind of a work of reclamation, that's kind of what the big message is that, you know, we are gonna be okay, and we're gonna come out of this. And you know, all these things, and so the wolves out there looking at us, you know, from the woods, they they're wondering about us because, you know, we've changed so much, but it has a happy ending. So it's fiction. It has a happy ending. So there we're at.
Miigwech, I do have a question. This is from Ari. What have the wolves revealed? Oh, they start with Miigwech Thomas. What have the wolves revealed to you about you and people? I'm Indigenous Costa Rican, Bree, and the way we interact with the stories of the animals often reveals us something to the whole.
Yeah. You know, I live, of course, within the range of the Echo Valley Pack. Up here in Redcliffe, I live out in Little Sand Bay, and I hear wolves all the time. I see their scat, you know, their poop, um, um, and see their signs of them all the time. My children have borne, you know, their name their way. One of them named after a wolf. The other one, another one named after some of the behavior of wolves. Um, uh, you know, I didn't write the book particularly, you know, to you know, I don't have that kind of background in in, in whether wolves, you know, the hunting of wolves or anything like that. Of course, I don't believe in that because of that relationship that, you know, we Ojibwe have with the wolf, you know, that parallel relationship. So I don't believe in that. I didn't really set out to, you know, write a book that would change that, but it is getting that kind of attention. I've had like the International Wolf Center folks come and see me, and all kinds of interesting things like that. And I know the book has been selling really well with people who have an interest in animals and in our close relationship with animals. You know, and that notion that, you know, animals are our our relatives. I mean, you can't look at a wolf and not believe at any animal and not believe that they are our relatives. I mean, they have eyes, they have nose, they have lips. We're made of the same thing. We're made of the same earth as they are. We um, you know, they have a language. We have teeth. Some of us. You know, they are earth creatures um, living on a very tiny planet in a medium star. They're carbon-based life forms. in a small solar system, in a medium-sized galaxy of billions and billions of galaxies. They are our relatives, and they deserve the same kind of respect that every living creature on this planet deserves. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Glitch Thomas. Do you mind if I spin off what you're saying a little bit about the science background of harvesting wolves and doing wolf hunts? Overall, so I research this a lot and have been over the past 3 years, and I focus on wolves specifically and carnivore coexistence and all the ways that federal and state governments and historically just colonists killed wolves. And overall, there's not enough research into all the ways that we could be doing coexistence. And there's also not enough appreciation of all the knowledge that Indigenous people, including Anishinaabe, hold about coexisting. But with the research that does exist, hunting wolves doesn't have the positive impacts that sometimes people claim. So if you hunt a wolf, you have to think about how it's a pack animal, and it's devastating, especially if you killed the breeding female or the alpha female. But you learn so much in the Wolf's Trail about how important the whole family is to raising the pups, so it still has this rippling effect into the pack. And then additionally, if you choose to kill a carnivore rather than learning to build an understanding with it, because like you're saying, these are relatives and they have these rights, and they're also really smart and they taught us everything we know as humans. But in the Western lens, we still have this like creationist idea that humans are on top, even though we're reliant on all of other life. But if we choose to not coexist in this good way and we choose to kill carnivores, then often what happens is either a new individual or a new pack will come into the area, but usually it's young individuals and they're more desperate. So that's where even more conflict can happen, where instead of healthy dynamics going on and hunting natural prey, they might actually increase predation on livestock animals if we kind of mess with those dynamics. So I just wanted to throw that in. I see some conversation in the chat box about the upcoming delisting, and people are talking strategy, and I think that's so great, and everyone can really play a role, and I think it's so good that people are generating ideas. Someone talked about last time wolves were delisted, I'm not sure what state, but they applied for a wolf tag, not to use it, but just if they got it, they would hold on to it, and that was a common strategy. Let's see what else is going on in the chat box. Scott Pitta, who's involved with the Wisconsin Conservation Congress and follows this stuff a lot, is saying in the chat box that if he recalls, around 9,000 points were applied for over the 3 years Wisconsin had wolf hunts. This represents less than 1% of the state population. There's no real interest in a wolf hunt in our state. As far as tag buying in Wisconsin goes, it does not work. They keep hunting until the quota is filled, not a limited number of wolf tags. So you would be giving money for the wolf hunt essentially to the agency that doesn't care about your interests or preserving. All right, so thanks for, oh, that's from a different comment from Melissa Smith. Okay, so, ooh, we've got a question now. We have a small spot of land in the town of Washburn, and the former county clerk who paid our taxes to had words with my husbands about the wolves attacking their livestock. Abby, how much of this has to do with availability of prey versus maybe we're cutting down forests and destroying streams, wetlands, and this drives the wolves out of the wild places? What are you learning in your studies? Do you mind if I answer a question, Thomas, again?
Why not? Why?
Okay, keep the questions coming. This is really great dialogue. So, Loran, there's not clear-cut answers to situations like that. There's lots of questions I have, and I'm gonna throw in my email. Oh, I'm commenting as the wrong person. I am gonna put in my email right now. It should be under everyone. Everyone. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I'm getting technical help. I put my email in. So I always am happy to talk to people about carnivore coexistence situations, and I can't really speak to the specific issue, but I did just take part in the 2020 Great Lakes Wolf Symposium, and there is a recent study out of the Western UP where coyotes, oh, no, let me back up, sorry. A lot of studies indicate that coyotes may be more prevalent in situations of livestock depredation, and what people can do when they lose livestock is call up APHIS Wildlife Services, which is a USDA branch, and they would investigate it and help you figure out. And there's definitely limitations to that because sometimes people lose a whole calf and the reimbursement systems or like the government support for farmers is not all there, and that's something I'm really trying to advocate for through my research and thesis. There's a lot of things that could go into livestock depredations, from needing to have different husbandry practices to, like I was mentioning, when we hunt carnivores, that really changes a lot of dynamics. I've learned that some farmers are experiencing a change in the landscape where wetlands are beginning to form and kind of encroach on their pasture land, and that definitely can bring in like coyotes in particular in that type of habitat. So there can be a lot that is going on, and what I think really needs to happen is for there to be more natural resource agencies with good carnivore coexistence programming where we can do things like investigate certain situations that involve depredation, but we can do things before that to try to prevent it, like working with non-lethal deterrence, which is what I study. And you can email me more for that details, or if you want to be updated when my master's thesis defense is going to be, because I don't want to take up any more time talking about this. But a big thing we do with our wildlife program is work with farmers within the Mashkiiziibii buffer zone, which goes out about 6 miles in each direction from the reservation. We work with those farmers in particular to build good relationships with them and build good relationships with the carnivores around their farms so that they can keep their livestock safe while we're coexisting with carnivores that play a lot of important roles for our ecosystems on top of just having inherent value. Oh, Peter David wants to know if you could read a favorite passage from the book. Do you have Thomas? I think that would be really great.
I'm not sure if I do have a favorite passage or not. I have a couple of them. I'm going to dig for one here. Well, one of my favorite, this one is where little niece is talking about the Ojibwe. Over the past several seasons, with each litter of pups, I've talked story to them about my uncle, the things he taught me, values he reinforced in the way he lived his life. I try to do the same myself, live those values. I do it naturally. And I speak highly to them about our relatives, the Ojibwe. I want wolves to know about them in a good way. This is what I say. Generosity is love being acted upon, and we wolves and humans have always been generous. In cultures that were built around the needs of the group rather than individuals, sharing is reinforced on a daily basis so it becomes deeply ingrained in our thinking and culture. Our ancestors would not have survived without it. When the new humans came among the Ojibwe people, they noticed and made note of their generosity. They would typically be gifted with whatever it was when one of the new humans would remark how much they liked something of the Ojibwe. I've taught each group of pups that despite the adoption of the new humans' values, such as materialism and individualism among many Ojibwe people, the value of generosity remains strong in their communities. At the summer powwows, there will always be a group of youth and adults bringing food plates to elders and the disabled at feast time. And when their families suffer the loss of a loved one, food and this paper they call money, which they exchange for things, will appear at their doors from all over their community. From the programs the workers in their government have designed to serve the humans, from friends and relatives, many of whom are poor and who have little else to give. Some will just come sit and visit and give the gift of friendship and understanding, for they, along with everyone in their communities, have experienced many difficult periods of grieving as well, sharing the two attributes necessary for empathy, the experience of knowing what others are going through, as well as feeling their pain, the affect. They will bring tobacco, and their dwellings will be filled with blue smoke, muffled voices, and laughter. Because even in mourning, Ojibwe people will find reasons for laughter in the stories that are sharing. Even the stories are a gift.
Gwitch. I think I have two more questions. The first one is from Sarah, and Sarah's asking if the Wolf's Trail was written more to preserve the story of Mayingan or to help encourage Europeans or other cultures to learn about Ojibwe and their teachings.
I think it was more to share that parallel story between wolves and humans, to know that what happens to one will happen to the other. So that intricate relationship between us two. So.
The other question is being posed to both of us, and I'll let you speak first. It's just what our thoughts are about Mayingan looking towards the near future, so presumably the future of delisting.
Yeah, I mean, my own sense is that, of course, that you know, the new humans, and that's what I refer to the colonials in the story. The new humans have a lot to learn from indigenous cultures, and one of the hopes, of course, for doing a story like this is that from reading it, they'll have a much better understanding of our relationship with other life, and gain the same kind of respect that that we have for other living things.
We have a few more questions. I don't really have any thoughts to add on at this time about the future. Just I feel like I've gotten to speak about it, and I'll add things on later if it comes to mind. Let's see, I've got a question from Aaron, who's from the Ojibwe community of Garden River up in what's Canada now. And Aaron's wondering about what kind of community support we have for the tribe's wolf plan, specifically with the hunting community. So the plan was written back in 2013 before I was around, but we just updated it in 2019. And we always solicit community input, but so it's formed with that input, but also with, obviously I'm not a tribal member and I helped write it and helped write the scientific parts. And if I could do the plan perfectly, it would go a lot longer and involve a lot of primary language holders and elders, and I wouldn't even be leading it. But for now, it did have as much community input as we could gather, but something we're trying to work on moving forward is how much engagement we get with tribal hunters and trappers. And I think we're gonna do some good work with that this fall and winter with Chris Arbuckle, who's a wildlife technician and grew up on the res. So I think we're gonna do some good work, but that just takes time and relationship building. And then you've got a question, Thomas, on whether you can speak more about the role of language and how we think about wolves and conservation in general, and asking about like the limits of a Western-centric approach to conservation issues and wolf issues.
Yeah, I think, I can, well, it's like 3 questions there. Maybe I'll just take the last part of it. It's about 3 questions, a big, long question. Very good question, actually. I know that, because I grew up in a hunting and trapping family. I grew up before the welfare state, back when we had to survive on what we hunted and what we grew. As a little kid, we'd go on fishing trips upriver for days. My brothers and cousins, maybe the oldest among us would be 11 years old, with our canoes and our 22s and 12 gauges, and we'd go up there for 3-4 days, and we'd fish, and we'd bring the fish home, and some of it would be to eat, and some of it would be to sell, and we did the same thing, with rabbits. I choked a lot of rabbits, snared a lot of rabbits in the winter, and some of it would be to eat, and some of it would be to sell. We trapped other small animals, so a lot of that. I think our relationship was very different. In the Western and American culture, sees so many things as a sport, and I think seeing something as a sport and seeing something as a form of sustenance is a very different way of looking at it, and it carries a whole different meaning. So I'll end it at that.
Which, yeah, you're making me think of when I was just an intern with Bad River, and I basically a city girl and just had my science background, and I didn't even know how to use a compass. And the old Bad River warden brought me on a tour of the back roads and a side-by-side, and he was like, this side-by-side can get through anything. And then we got stuck in a swamp, and I had a big leech on my foot. But we got out, so I learned how to get out of a situation like that. And I just learned so much from going around with that warden, because he's just, nothing replaces having that knowledge from the land. And it was really humbling to come up initially and realize how much I didn't know. And at this point in life, I'm just kind of excited by the fact that I will never I always know less than what I do know, and there's always so much more to learn. Don't see any other questions at the moment. It looks like we had one person express interest in the Anishinaabe Moan game so far. So maybe I could have Wabagwan come on and explain the game a little bit more, get some more folks excited, or at least we can do a demonstration. Let's see.
Bonjour, Kakinauya. Wabagon and Ojibwe Mong, Mokoni, Zikin Dunjba. Miigwech Bijayik and Niminwindam Bijayan. So I'm thankful for being here. What I have here is Ojibwe Pictionary, and I can't share screen for some reason. But I have a list of words that I compiled, and Abby took a look at them and decided that these were good Mayan words. But
Are you only logged in under Wabagwan today? Trying to
yes.
figure out why you can't present. I believe I have you as a presenter and an organizer.
Okay.
Do you see the screen button on the bottom by the camera button? I'm going to give you a second to troubleshoot, and I'm going to go back and thank Thomas. Okay. Well, Thomas, we wish for this beautiful book you wrote and for taking all the time to share just a little bit of your stories. I wanted to invite you to say any closing words you had.
I just want to thank you for having me part of this program, and I hope that people get a chance to look at the book and tell me what they think of it. They can get contact information through you. That'd be fine, and let me know what you think of the work and the characters in it, and hope you get something out of it. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was our first virtual event like this as the Wildlife Program, so it would be really awesome to see what kind of events we put on with the winter coming and really the time to tell stories beginning. So I hope we can collaborate again. And
is there a way I can turn off my camera and but still listen in on the Ojibwe Moan on the game?
I think I can turn it off for you. There we go. Yes.
Good deal.
So now, if folks want to stay on while we try to troubleshoot getting this Anishinaabe Moan game up on, you can at least watch, if not participate. But please excuse us while we troubleshoot this. Need some like good waiting music, or if anyone has some appropriate jokes. Where did Wabagwan go?
Alexa, could you tell us a joke?
A limber champion walked into a bar. He was immediately disqualified.
Oh, who walked into a bar?
A limbo champ.
Oh. That's terrible. Why did the farmer have to switch to... Wow, how does this one go? Why did the farmer need to stop feeding their cows round bears? Round bales. It's been a long day. Why did the farmer have to stop feeding the cows round bales? They couldn't get a square meal. It's terrible. Are you having any... Let's see. Oh, I think we're getting closer to the language game working. Got waiting music.
I'll take a try at a joke.
Yay!
One of my students told me he threw a boomerang a couple of years ago. He's been living in fear ever since.
Oh boy. I've never been able to get a boomerang to work. Okay, it looks like we've got
Eventually, the
some
boomerang will
vocab
come
in
around
the
to you.
chat box. Oh, what was that, Matthew? You have a joke?
I said eventually, you said you
No.
could never get a boomerang to work. I said the skill will eventually come around to you.
Oh. I think I heard Wabagwan.
Bonjour, good Kanoia. I put the words in the chat box. So I will just go over those words, and then once you give me capability to share, I will start to draw those, and then you can just guess the answer and say the word in Ojibwe Moan. Sounds
Okay.
good?
Yeah, I think I get it. I think anyone is able to just unmute and take a guess because you have all the vocabulary words. So try to pronounce it in Anishinaabe, Moen.
Definitely. So if you go into your chat box, all of the words are in the chat box. The first word is Maingen, and that is wolf. Maingen. Maingen. And then if you plural it, it will be Mainganug.
Mainganug.
So Mainganug. Then for little wolf, we have, excuse me?
Oh, sorry. I was just wondering if you have sharing capabilities yet, because I tried sending it.
Good. Okay.
Oh, stop for a second.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. So little wolf is Maingan Aints. Maingan Aints. And for the plural little wolf, it would be Maingan Aints Sug. Maingan Aints Sug. Black wolf is Muckade Maingan. Muckade Maingan. White wolf is Wabishke. Wabishke Maingan. Wabishke Maingan. So, Waj is a dun. Waj. Daje means she or he, the animal, lives in a certain place. Daje wag, mainganug.
Shewag Maing.
It you wash. So the wolves live in the den. Certain place, which is the den. And then the woods and the forest is Megwayak. Megwayak. Megwayak.
Megwayak.
Megwayak.
Wayak.
So when the wolves travel around in the Megwayak, they ba ma dize. Ba ma dize. Ba ma dize.
Papa Dize.
Yep. Ba ma dize. And when they travel in a pack in a herd group, it's Okwi no wug. Okwi no wug. And then the tracks are called Bimikawan. Bimikawan.
Bimikawan.
Bimikawan. And looking for tracks is Nundo Kawe Chike. Nundo Kawe Chike.
Okay. I like that.
And she or he hunts is Iyose. Iyose. And she or he howls the animal. Wa woo no. Wa woo no.
Wa
Wa woo no. Wa woo no. And she is smart or intelligent, which are the wolves. Gikendaso. Gikendaso. And then Abby wanted to put Zage Idewin, which is a mutual love. And we have to have between the wolves and not only the Anishinaabe, but the Kinowe, everyone. Zage Idewin. Zage Idewin. So we have the names of the seasons. We have spring as Ziguan. Ziguan. Then we have summer, Niben. And then fall, which we are in right now, Dagwaagin. And then winter is going to follow, Beboon. So we have these list of words, and then I am going to start drawing and using the whiteboard. So whoever can guess what I'm drawing in Ojibwe Moen gets a wonderful book. Okay? Kidushi-tamina, are you guys ready? Indujita, I am ready. Indujita.
Indujita. If you're playing,
Should we be unmuted the whole time, or should we just unmute when we're ready to answer?
You can unmuted the whole time.
Okay.
If you
Good.
want.
Okay. I'm not a very good artist guy, so I will say
Wash.
Gosh.
what? Gay. Who said that?
It was either Harmon or Brian, but
I don't know
I'll
who was
just
first. We can keep going.
I'll just give you both a book. You both
Oh,
want a
good.
book.
Woohoo!
Email me. I'm gonna put my email.
Woo!
Email me your mailing information and give me time to get it in the mail.
Awesome. Awesome. Miigwech.
Yay, Harmon.
All right.
Okay. So the next one I will do.
Giyose. Giyose.
Hola. Buenas noches, gay, Lydia.
Lydia, you get book number.
Ooh.
Email me your info.
Miigwech. Ziguan.
Miguayak.
Gay gago. Going.
That one's right.
Not spring, it's
Neven.
gay, Julia. Migoyak. Correct.
All right, Julia, you get book number. Email me your info.
How do we email you? Do we just put our email in our email address in the chat, or I came in late.
I put my email address in the chat. It's wildlife.
Oh, okay. Will do.
You guys just enjoying my like
Good.
It's just my
Is that a
Indian.
very sassy Maingan?
Maingan. Yeah.
Abishki my Indian.
Ahau, gay. Bishke, Wabishke Maingan.
Okay, I think Kyla and Sarah both deserve books for that one because it was a wolf, a white wolf. That was you two, right? Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 4 books.
Megwayak?
Gay.
Megwayak. Yep.
Yeah.
Matthew, email me, you get book number 7.
Was I in there too or not?
Oh, was that Kyla?
Yeah, I just didn't want to email you. If not, I wasn't sure.
You and Sarah both won, but I was gonna give you both one for the Maingan.
Nice.
Oh,
So I
perfect.
think-
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. You were looking at the other one. Okay.
One of you said Maingan and one said Wabishki Maingan.
Yeah.
So we got 3 more books.
3 more books. Okay.
Okwinawak. Baboon?
Be boom, gay, gay.
By McLean. Then
Whoever said be boom was right.
That was Paige. You know where to
Okay.
find. We've got 2 more books. So whoever has linked them.
Zagilawin.
Gay, gay.
Lydia, do you want to claim a second book for someone?
Yep.
Okay, I'll bring you 2. One more
Oh, wow,
book left.
that's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good.
All right, last round.
Last round? Okay.
Well, for a book, we could do more if we really wanted.
Bimikawan.
Gay, gay. Who said that? That's
Nando Kawejige.
Did you hear that? That was Royce, who's sitting next to me.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Nando Kawejike was right.
Royce, you win the book. Oh my god. You guys, so talented.
Email me your address. All right.
Whoa.
Whoa. What's going on there?
Seeing it, Wabi.
You have a few more words you want to just do while we go on? Just for fun?
Sure. Just for fun? Oh, yeah, sure. Should we do some that's not on there? Maybe you guys might know these ones.
Whoa, if you really want to challenge us.
Yes.
Yeah. Pull
I'll
up
do
your
it.
Ojibwe dictionaries on UMD's site. Ooh.
What day I'm in? What day I'm in?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Me one?
Mm-hmm. Gimme one. You guys are good.
The name of the Mashkiiziibii alpha male.
Oh.
Couple more?
Couple more. Let's do some.
Good.
Mishimin.
Gay. Go ahead. Machine. Okay.
Jumanguini.
Mm-hmm. McGranny.
That was a new word. Shaman
Jew.
Wow.
Jew McQueen.
Jumenguene. Wow. Well, miigwech. So much for and with us. That was fun. Make sure if you want a book to email me your info.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, definitely.
When wanna let us know when your language tables are?
We offer language tables on Tuesdays and Wednesday. Tuesdays are from 5:30 to 7 p.m. and they're via Zoom. Wednesdays are 5 p.m. until 6:30. So join us for an evening of Ojibwe moments. And usually, if you're on the Bad River Community Posting Board, I post the link, the Zoom link on there. Maybe I could put it on here. 1 second.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you for putting up my beautiful kindergarten drawing.
It just adds to the fun.
We understood them.
That's a great game for language tables. That's wonderful, miigwech. I learned something new tonight for sure there too.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the meeting open long enough for. Were you gonna add a link for language tables in the chat, Wabagwan?
Absolutely. Gonna do that right now.
I'll just
This is the Tuesdays. Yeah. So that's for the Tuesdays.
Okay. And if anyone has any follow-up questions, you can email me and I can connect you with anyone. And we did record this, so hopefully it'll get up on our website if you want to revisit it or share it or use it as a resource. But I just wanted to say, which especially to all of you who stayed on time. This was really nice way to spend the evening and honor my Ingen and learn together.
Thank you for having me. I appreciated this. It was a great conversation.
Well, thank you for the time and knowledge that you shared.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Gigawaba.
Have a good night, everyone.
Gigawaba, miigwech.